This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, Parsha Vayechee, page 268 in the Stone Chumashim, Perek Mem Zayin Pasuk Chavchet, and we'll learn Le'iloi Nishmas Ora Bat Yaakov. The Parsha begins Vayechee Yaakov Be'eretz Mitzrayim. Yaakov lived in the land of Mitzrayim Shva Esrei Shana, 17 years. Vayehi Yemei Yaakov, and it was the years of Yaakov, Shnei Chayav, the years of his life, Sheva Shanim, 7 years, V'arbeim Uma'at Shana, and 40 and 100, 147 years. Vayechi Yaakov, he lived in Mitzrayim for 17 years. The Balaturim points out that the gematria of Vayechi, Vav is 6, Yud is 10, 20, two of those. Chet is 8, 34. So he points out Vayechi Yaakov. Yaakov lived, altogether he lived 34 years. Vayechi, meaning when he felt, remember, what did he say when Yosef was sold, and when he didn't know it was sold, when the bloody coat of Yosef was brought to him, right? What was his reaction then? Right. Vayitabel, he mourned, right? And they tried to comfort him. Vayomer, and he said, Ki ereid el b'ni avel sha'ola. I will go down to the grave mourning for my son. How many years altogether was Yaakov together with Yosef? 17 years now. And how old was Yosef when he was sold? 17. Okay, so he lived for 17 years there with Yosef, and now another 17 years with Yosef. And the reason why he was going to go down to the grave mourning was because his purpose was to bring in these 12 tribes. And with Yosef's death, he had failed in his life mission. That's what he thought. And therefore, he was in a constant state of mourning. So how long was he alive for? Alive meaning feeling I'm fulfilling my mission in life. I'm fulfilling that for which I was sent here. 17 plus 17, Vayechi, and he lived those 34 years. Vayikrevu Yemei Yisroel lamut. Now the time approached for Yisroel to die. So it's very interesting. We go up and back between the name Yaakov and Yisroel, Yisroel and Yaakov. So the Orach Chaim points out, he asks, well, Avram's name was changed to Avraham. And once Avraham's name was changed, we never call him Avram anymore. To the point that there are certain people who today had the name, certain boys, they're given the name not Avraham, but they're given the name Avram. And someone approached me and he said, it really bothers me that my name is Avram. I want to be Avraham. I want to change my name to Avraham. What's this Avram? I don't know why my father gave me the name Avram. And I called Rav David Cohen, who is a major posek in New York, to whom I go to with many questions that come up here in the community. And I said, can I change this guy's name? He said, you don't need to. I said, what do you mean? I said, his name is Avraham. I said, no. His father named him Avram at the bris. His father made a mistake. His father meant to name him Avraham. He said, let me explain. People with a certain accent, so they swallow it. Comes out Avrom, Avrum, Avrum. But it's actually Avraham. No one gives the name, but he was named after his grandfather. Well, then his great-grandfather made that same mistake. but no one is named Avram. It's only Avraham. So he doesn't need to change his name. His name is Avraham. Let him know that. The guy was ecstatic. I'd saved his life over there. So we never use the name Avram. We certainly don't refer to him as Avraham in the Torah. Yet by Yaakov, his name was changed, and yet we still refer to him in this first two psukim. We have two Yaakovs and then a Yisroel. So why is that? So if you look back to page 188, that is where the name change took place. Page 188, Perek Lamed Hey, chapter 35, Pasuk Yud, verse 10. The very top there, verse 10. Vayomer lo Elokim, Hashem said to him, Shimcha Yaakov. Lo yikar, your name is Yaakov, Jacob. Lo yikare Shimcha od Yaakov. Your name will no longer be called Yaakov, Ki im Yisrael, rather Yisrael yeh shemecha. Vayikra et Shemo, rather Yisrael will be your name. Vayikra et Shemo Yisrael. So the Or HaChaim points out that Hashem, the pasuk began, Shimcha Yaakov. Your name is Yaakov. And the Or HaChaim explains so beautifully that our name, right, we spoke before about Yaakov feeling he had not fulfilled his destiny. His destiny was to have those 12 tribes. Our name is our destiny. The Or HaChaim says that parents had this, if not prophecy, we don't have nowadays, but had this spiritual Ruach HaKodesh. When they chose the Hebrew name that was given to us, or if a person converted when they chose their Hebrew name that they would adopt. And that name is actually the name, what he calls, of the Shoresh HaNishama, of the root of that person's nishama, of that person's soul. And he explains, and that is who we are, and that is our mission. And that is something that can never be taken away, never be changed. And he says, Avram became Avraham. Avraham still contained within it Avram. So therefore, when we changed his name to Avraham, it was not ruining, it was not torpedoing, it was not removing that mission from him. But Yisroel is a completely different meaning, a different name than Yaakov. And therefore, what happened over here with this name is that Yaakov was given a double mission. The mission of Yaakov and the mission of Yisroel. And therefore, those names both remained throughout. Why? Is it sometimes Yaakov and sometimes Yisroel? We'll come to that in a minute, the way the Or HaChaim explains it. A question or a thought that I had on this, though, was how about Sarai becoming Sarah? Whereas Avraham encompasses Avram, Sarah does not completely encompass Sarai. Yet once her name was changed from Sarai to Sarah, we never hear Sarai again. It's only Sarah. That was a question I had. A thought, I don't know if it's correct or not, a thought that I had on that is, well, let's look at the meanings. When her name was changed, Sarai was my Sar, my officer, my leader, and it became to Sarah, the leader of all, not just of mine. So really, Sarah is an expansion, an extension of Sarai, and perhaps that's why Sarah still includes Sarai, and therefore her name was fully changed.
How do you spell Sarai? It has yud in it, right?
One yud.
And Sarah doesn't have any yud.
Correct.
So
But the meaning but the meaning is such that it went from my sar to the world's sar. My elegant leader to the world's elegant leader. Right? So maybe, right? Another idea they say over there is that the yud of Sarai, right, which is 10, was split in half, and she became Sarah and Avraham. We got two hays for a yud, right? So she gave of herself to become, right, that she and her husband would both have that unity. But in terms of the Orach Chaim, I'm not sure about the Sarai Sarah. Maybe what I'm saying is correct, maybe not. Just a thought that I had. But then he says we need to understand it's not arbitrary. So when is the name Yaakov used? And when is the name Yisroel used? And he explains it's like Shabbos. On Shabbos, we get what's called the neshama yetera. We get that added soul, that added neshama, that added spirituality. That's what we get on Shabbat. And then after Shabbos, vayi nafash, we say, vay nefesh. Woe to the nefesh that leaves us after Shabbat. So we have our state of spiritual elevation, and then we come back down to earth. Actually, the reason why we sniff the besamim, Motzei Shabbat, as part of the Havdalah ceremony, is because we had this extra spirituality. Now it's leaving us, so it's like smelling salts, right? We need something to perk us up, to get us going again, because we're in a depleted state as this extra neshama leaves us. So he explains when Yaakov was in an ascendant state, a state of happiness, a state of spiritual elevation, a state of feeling accomplished, connected to Hashem, then he was Yisroel, Kisarita, right? Because you have contended with the divine and the mundane, Vatuchal, that's Yisroel. That's when he is in that ascendant state. And when he is in a non-ascendant state, when that neshama yetera, so to speak, leaves, so then he is Yaakov. Yaakov is Vayakveni Zepamayim. He tricked me twice. He was grabbing at the heel of Esav, at the akev of Esav. That's when he is down and out, because the Shechina is only Shora. Hashem's presence is only rests when a person is in a state of uplifted simcha with who they are and where they're at, and feeling that mission being fully accomplished. So let's see some examples of this. Okay, let's go to page 206. Here is where it all really begins. Page 206 is when they showed the bloody garment to Yaakov, Vayakira. This is Perek Lamed Zayin, 37, verse 33. Vayakira, he recognized that garment. Vayomer, he said, Ketonet b'ni, that is the ketonet of my son. Chaya ra'ah, a wild beast, achaladu, consumed him. Taraf Yosef, Yosef has been torn apart. Vayikra Yaakov simlotav. Yaakov, at that point, he is full-blown Yaakov. Tears his garments. Vayasim sak b'matnav, he put on a sackcloth. Vayit abel, and he was mourning, and his children tried to comfort him, and he refused to be comforted, as the pasuk Esther said before. I'll go down to the grave, mourning. And his father cried. And then, from this point on, he is going to be Yaakov. He tears his garments. He is Yaakov. and remains Yaakov. He points out there are three places where we're going to jump to now on page 256. There are just three places where actually Yisroel, and that's where he needed to put himself into a position to speak to his sons about bringing the food, etc. But for the most part, he is Yaakov throughout. And then what happens? Now we're in Parshat Vayigash. In Vayigash, all of a sudden now he gets the message. He gets the message. Actually, this is very good. Take a look on page 254. Right? Yosef sends a message to his father with the brothers. Tell father as follows. Page 254, pasuk tet, memhei tet, the very top. Maru, quickly, va'alu, al avi, and go to my father. Va'amartimil, and say to him, Ko amar bincha Yosef, this is what your son Yosef says. Samani elokim la'adon, God has appointed me as a master, l'chol Mitzrayim, over all of Egypt. Rida Eli, come down to me, al ta'amod, and do not delay. Page 256. What do the brothers actually say to him? Page 256, Pasuk Chavav 26. Vayavo, they came to their Yaakov, a father. Vayagidu lo lemor, and they told him as follows: Od Yosef chai. Yosef is still alive. V'chihu Moshel b'chol eretz Mitzrayim, and he is ruling over all the land of Egypt. Was that the right message or the wrong message? What did they leave out?
Come now.
Okay, besides the come now. Okay, number one, Yosef said, Hashem, God has appointed me. And what else do they leave out? How did Yosef refer to himself in the message?
Master.
Himself? Ko amar bincha Yosef. Your son, Joseph. How do they refer to him? Yosef Chai. Joseph is alive. What was Yosef? What message was he trying to give when he said, tell him your son Yosef is alive? What was the message?
The message is, I'm still Yosef.
I'm still your son, Yosef.
And you're still my father.
And you're my father.
And I have not assimilated.
I have not assimilated. I am here as your son Yosef. I proudly represent who you are, and you will be proud of the way that I represent who you are. Let's keep in mind, Mitzrayim was the immoral. It was the, you'll pardon me, it was the Las Vegas of the world over there. That's what it was, right? Imagine this tzaddik hearing that his son is the one who's in charge of all the clubs in Las Vegas, right? How's that going to make the guy feel? The tzaddik feel, right? So all of a sudden he hears it's JoJo from Egypt. That's what he hears over there. He doesn't want to hear about JoJo from Egypt. So what happens? What's his response? Vayafag libo, his heart like fell. Kilo emin lahem. He did not want to believe them. If his whole mission was bringing these 12 tribes and one of them has become JoJo of Egypt, that's a calamity. Then what does it say? Vayidabre elav et kol divrei Yosef asher diber aleihem. Then they told him all the words of Yosef, asher diber aleihem, that he had spoken to them. Oh, well, actually, here's the quote. Yosef bincha samani elokim. It's Yosef, your son. God has appointed me. Then what happens? He saw the agalot. Vatichi ruach Yaakov avihem. What happens? The ruach of Yaakov chai. It came alive, right? Vayechee Yaakov. Those 34 years, the 17 years now, the latter 17. The ruach of Yaakov came alive. Vayomer Yisroel. Who's talking now? Now Yisroel says, Rav, wow, Od Yosef, Bini, Chai. He heard the full message. Oh, Yosef, my son, is still alive. Elcha, I'll go, Ver'enu, and I'll see you. And I'll see him b'terem amut, before my death. Vayisa Yisrael. Yisrael is traveling now. Since the sale of Yosef, it was Yaakov, 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 Yaakov. Now it's Yisrael. He travels. Vayizbach zevachim, and he's bringing sacrifices. Elokei aviv Yitzchak. V'yomer Elokim Yisrael. And then Hashem said to Yisrael, B'marot halayla, in the vision night, chapter 46, verse 2, Vayomer Yaakov. Yaakov. Oh. Vayomer Hineni. Let's see what's going to happen. Vayomer Anilchi Hakel Elokei Avicha. Al Tira. I'm God, the God of your father. Do not be afraid to go down to Mitzrayim. Ki legoy gadol asimcha sham. Oh. I think you asked Cheryl last week, or someone asked, well, once the famine had ended, so get the food and go back home. Right? Say, no. You'll be in Egypt. L'goy gadol asimcha sham. You become a great nation over there. You're going to have to go through this exile that's going to be the kor habarzel, the smelting furnace that will turn you into a great nation. And don't worry. Anochi eredim cha Mitzrayma. I will go down with you to Egypt. Anochi alcha gam alo. And I'll also bring you back up. Oh, he just hears now about this exile. Vayakam Yaakov. Right? Yaakov now gets up. Okay? And now it's going to be, right? Now, the children will refer to as Bnei Yisrael, but Yaakov is basically going to be Yaakov for now on. All the time that he's in Mitzrayim, he's going to be Yaakov. He has that, but yes. Right? But then what happens? So that's where he is. Now, let's go to page 260. Vayesov Pasuk Chavtet 29, Memvav Chavtet. Yosef readied his chariot, went up to greet his father in Goshen. And he appeared to him. Vayipol, he fell on his neck. Vayef, and he cried on his neck. Vayomer Yisrael. Oh, at the moment that he is reunited with Yosef, what happens? That dispels the gloom of the Galus, of what he had heard about the Galus. Vayomer Yisrael El Yosef Amuta Pa'am. Wow. Now, Amuta Pa'am. If I die now, I will have died fulfilled. Acharei Ra'oti et Panecha. Now that I've seen your face. Ki Odecha Chai. You are still alive? Oh, my life has been fulfilled. Okay? But after that, it's going to be Yaakov, Yaakov, Yaakov. The bottom of 262, right? Pasuk Zayin, Mem Zayin, Zayin. Vayavei Yosef et Yaakov Aviv. He's bringing Yaakov, his father, Pharaoh, and standing him in front of Pharaoh, right? This is already the exile that is beginning, right? The harsh exile was only afterwards, after the death, we'll learn Shemos next week, after the death of Yosef and his brothers, V'chol Hadarahu, and that whole generation. But already now, from this point on, besides when he heard about the Galus, the exile, besides his meeting with Yosef, he's Yaakov. He stood before Paro, and Vayivarech Yaakov et Paro. Yaakov blessed Paro. And Paro said to Yaakov, Kami yemei shnei chayecha, what are the years of your life? And Yaakov says to Paro, it's on and on and on. Okay? So that's how it's going to be. It's going to be Yaakov when he is in Mitzrayim. Let's go back to our Parsha now. Vayechee Yaakov be'eretz Mitzrayim. Yaakov lived in the land of Mitzrayim. Shvas Shana v'hi yemei Yaakov, in the years of the days of Yaakov, Shneichev, the years of his life, 147 years. Vayikirvu yemei Yisroel lamut. Now, at this point, as he's nearing his death, it's fascinating. Many times you hear situations like this, that a person, right before their death, all of a sudden they have this cognitive clarity, or all of a sudden a person looks younger, looks almost young again. I know with my stepmother, I wasn't there, but she had she passed away. She had terrible Alzheimer's, terrible Alzheimer's, and for years and years and years, she didn't know who was who, did not know who was who, couldn't forget about any names. Towards the end, actually, really talking almost talking gibberish, right? Earlier than that, when I would come visit her, right, she knew that we were connected, because the rabbi chaplain poked his head in and she said, "Who's he?" When I walked in, she said, "Hi," right? But who was I? No way she could figure that out. Yet, a few days before she passed away, my sister was there. And my sister walks into the room, and again, she hadn't spoken in years. She goes, "Sarah Beth." And my sister almost fainted. And she quickly called my brother, Alav Hashem, Josh, come right away. Mom's talking. And Josh got into the car and flew over there. By the time he got there, that clarity had passed. But before passing, there is this ascendancy that a person has as the neshama is not about to, but is in the process of leaving the body. Then the restrictions of the body, it seems, often happens, those restrictions are overwhelmed by the neshama, and all of a sudden the body is functioning. Yes, Cheryl.
It's just another example, but when Joyce Tackner was here recently, she always visits these people that lived on her street on Oak Tree Lane who were Jewish, and the woman also wasn't talking, just had no cognizance of anything. Joyce comes in and she's like totally lucid. She's like her old self.
Yeah.
And this lasted a couple of days.
Yeah.
But then, yes.
Yeah.
Then she left.
Yeah.
That was it. I just kept saying, what a miracle, because
yeah.
I was being updated all the time about this woman.
Yeah. So now he is Yisroel, right? He's reaching this ascendant state of getting ready to leave this world and to arrange things in their proper manner, in their proper order, before taking leave. And he tells Yosef, I want you to swear to do with me this chesed ve'emet, right? Whenever we speak at a funeral about the chesed shal emet, this is where we get it from. Chesed is kindness, emet is truth. What is the true kindness? That which we do with a person who has died. Because whenever we do a chesed, as pure as each and every one of us are, nevertheless, in the back of our mind, there is a certain thought of reciprocity. Right? But chesed shel emet is, there is no reciprocity. The person cannot do anything in return. do not bury me in Mitzrayim. V'shachavti im avotai, and here's a pasuk that comes up very often in this context. I will lie down with my fathers, unsatani mi Mitzrayim, and you'll carry me from Egypt, ukvartani b'kvuratam, and then you will bury me in their burial place. So if he still needs to be carried from Egypt and needs to be buried in their burial place, what does it mean that I will lie with my father, shechavti avotai? And this is how the Torah tells us what we understand, that when a person dies, the body is dead and needs to be buried, but the person lives on and joins those who have crossed what we call the Gesher HaChayim, that bridge of life. We refer to death as a bridge of life. The person then joins those who have preceded that person to that next world. And Yosef swears, I'll do. He says, swear, and he swears. And then, right, soon after, it's told to Yosef, your father is choleh, is sick. Vayikach, and he took his two sons with him, Menashe and Ephraim, right? And Yaakov is told, your son Yosef has come to you. He sat up by the bed, right? And then he says to him as follows. Hashem spoke to me. Pasuk Dalet, page 270, verse 4, we're on Memchet Dalet. Hashem spoke to me and said, Hineni mafrecha v'hir biticha. I will make you fruitful and numerous. Unataticha lekahal amim, and you will become a congregation of nations. Venatati et haaretz hazol zarcha charecha achuzat olam. I will give this to you as an eternal inheritance. Now, the Kahal Goyim was before Binyamin was born. But only one child was born afterwards. So he understood that there was this Bechora aspect, this double portion aspect, that one of the tribes would have the status of two tribes. And therefore he says, V'ata, and now, Shnei Vanecha, the two sons, Hanoladim lecha be'eretz Mitzrayim, who were born to you in Egypt, ad bo'i elechem Mitzrayim, before I came to you in Egypt, li haim, they are considered to be mine. Meaning, Ephraim u'Menashe, Ephraim and Menashe, Kireuvein v'Shimon, yihu li. They will have the same status as my first two sons, as Reuven and Shimon yihiyu li. So that gives us 13 tribes. How do we always have our 12 tribes? How do we count our tribes? So if we're counting Levi, then we count Yosef. And we have our 12. But there are times that we don't count Levi. For example, the apportioning of the land. Levi did not receive a portion of the land. We needed Levi to be spread out, and there were the 42 Arei Leviim, 42 Levite cities that were designated. And in addition to the 6 Arei Miklat, the 6 cities of refuge, there are 48 cities designated for the Leviim. So they're not getting land. What are they going to eat? Maaser, right? I wouldn't call it those donations, because that means like, oh, I've decided from the largesse of my soul, I've decided. No. We have a chiyuv. We're not allowed to eat any of the produce until it's been properly tithed, with 2% going to the Kohanim, 10% going to the Leviim, of which they take 1/10 of that and give to the Kohanim. Right? So everyone's got to be contributing around. So we have to support them. We have to support them. So when Levi is not counted as one of the 10, then Menashe and Ephraim are counted in the tally, and that's how we always have our Yud Bet Shvatim, how we always have our 12 tribes. When I was in Ner Yisroel, so Rav Yaakov Galinsky, who was a Zatzal, a great Rav, a great Magid, right, came and spoke. And he spoke in Yiddish for the yeshiva, which I did not then, nor do I now really understand. When I first got there, the Rosh Yeshiva, Rav Ruderman Zatzal, was giving a shmooze on the first day about, the El's mom about to start, and you have to become orangutan in your learning. You have to get all involved in your learning, to immerse yourself in the learning. I asked someone afterwards, why was he talking about orangutans? And they said, Ciner, next time sit next to someone who can translate for you. Don't try to figure it out yourself. So when Rav Galinsky came, he spoke in Yiddish for the whole yeshiva, but then he also spoke in Hebrew, primarily for, this is early 1980s. Someone just sent me, my sister-in-law just had a birthday, so we're all wishing her a happy birthday. She's a bit older than I. My second oldest brother's wife, and she sent back this cartoon. You're getting old when you realize that the difference between 1980 and 2023 is the same year difference between 1980 and 1937. Now, to us, like 1980, oh, sure, I remember 1980, sure, right? But 1937 sounds ancient. Well, the same difference. Yeah.
That was like the beginning of World War II, too.
Yeah. So the 1980, what was happening then was Khomeini was taking over the Islamic revolution in Iran. And so many families, Jewish families, were sending their sons out, not knowing what was going to be. Ner Yisroel, amazingly, under the stewardship of the leaders there, of Rav Neuberger, Zatzal, they took in tens of these Iranian boys. And those Iranian boys now are the Rabbanim, for the most part, of the Iranian communities here. There's Rav Davidi in Los Angeles, who I was with there. I was just when I was in Atlanta not long ago. I bumped into some other ones that I know that from there. Amazing. So these boys did not speak Yiddish, right? So he gave a shmooze in Hebrew. And he spoke about this, and it was amazing. He spoke about Mesirut Nefesh. Mesirut Nefesh is putting in the effort, pushing ourselves to do a little bit more, not just taking the easy, but being Moser Nefesh. And he said that we have a general rule that we believe, we understand, that Mesirut Nefesh equals Siyata Dishmaya. The person makes the effort, really puts it out there for God, then Hashem will help that person along the way. So he asked, first of all, over here, who are these two boys? Ephraim. They just became tribes. Now we know how careful everyone was, how Avram was so careful about who Yitzchak would marry, right? And who Yaakov would marry. And all of a sudden we got Yosef over here, out in Mitzrayim, marrying Osnat, the daughter of Potiphar. That's the daughter of the mother who tried to seduce him, the daughter of the father who had him thrown into prison. And all of a sudden, we've got ourselves these two tribes. The tribes, the Shiftei Ka, are coming from her. And also he didn't ask that question, I'm asking that question. Question that he asked is, if Mesirut Nefesh, effort, really giving of oneself, Hashem pays back, then we had a very, very, very troubling issue before. Because we know how much, we went through this a few weeks ago, how much the Imahot, the matriarchs, wanted to be the mothers of these different tribes. And the names of the tribes, Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, they're all because of their want to have children. And we're at the point where Leah has 6 children, Bilhah has 2 children, Zilpah has 2 children. That's a tally of 10. They all knew through some sort of level of prophecy there's going to be a total of 12. Rachel still has no children at all. And then Leah becomes pregnant. And she made a din. She made a calculation. Famous Rashi brings this, that if this will be a son, then we're at 11. Only 1 left for my sister Rachel. She'll have less than the maidservants, less than Bilhah, less than Zilpah. And she davened that this child should become a girl. And the child, according to Targum Yonatan ben Uziel, was transformed into a girl. Dina, and the girl was born. She named the girl Dina because of this din, this calculation that she made. So we know how they were so vested in having tribes. And here Leah had the opportunity to have her 7th tribe, which means more than half of Klal would have come from her, but she gave it up for the sake of her sister Rachel. Tremendous Mesirat Nefesh, and we should imagine, the nachas that Leah is going to have from this daughter Dina will be amazing. And of course, we know the opposite happened. What happened? Right? She was violated, taken by Shechem ben Chamor. And Dina was raped and taken until they were able to get her out of there, right? By the whole, right? Yaakov's plan was tell them all to circumcise, then we'll be able to go in there and get her out of there, right? Shimon and Levi took it further than that and went in there and wiped out the city. But where's the Mesirat Nefesh payback for Leah? This is what she gets. Kacha mishalmim, he said in Hebrew. That's how Hashem pays back. But there is Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer, which is a medrash. And the medrash says as follows. Vayatsa Dina. The pasuk says Dina went out lirot b'not haaretz, to see the daughters of the land. And then what did he do? V'shalalah, he grabbed her. V'shachav ima, and he slept with her. V'harata, she became pregnant. V'yalda, and she gave birth to a girl. From this violation. V'amu b'nei Yisroel lohorga. B'nei Yisroel said, the brothers of Dinah said, we have to kill this child. How can we have this abomination in the tents of Yaakov? That Yaakov, Jacob's daughter, was raped, and this is the child from Shechem ben Chamor. Ma'asa Yaakov, what did Yaakov do? Hevi sharatz shel zahav, he brought a plate of gold. Shem HaKadosh katuvbo, with the name of Hashem's name written on it. V'tala al tzavara, and hung it from her neck. Vishalcha v'halcha. And then he sent her. V'hakol tzafui l'fnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Everything is revealed before Hashem. V'yarad Michal HaMalach. Michael, the angel, came. V'horida l'Mitzrayim. And brought it down to Mitzrayim. Lebeit Potiphera. To the house of Potiphar. Shahaita asnat ru'uya liyosef liisha. They adopted this little girl and named her Osnat. V'haita ishtosha Potiphera akara. The wife Potiphera was unable to have children. The gadla ima kabat, and raised her like a daughter. Yosef came down to Mitzrayim with the whole interpreting the dreams of Paro. Lacha lo liisha. He took her to him as a wife, as it says, Vayiten lo et Osnat bat Potiphera. They gave to him Osnat, the daughter of Potiphera. So Osnat's mother was Dinah. Osnat's grandmother was Leah. So Leah, he said, gave up one shevet, and in turn, what did she get? She got 2 Shvatim, and he was a short man, and he starts banging on the lectern. Rabotai, Mishalmim, Olo, Mishalmim. Rabotai, Mishalmim, Olo, Mishalmim. Right? Mishalmim, does Hashem pay back? Or does he not pay back? But he said, the problem is, Anachnu garim bedor shel mikrogal. We live in a generation of the microwave. Meaning, you put it in there, 45 seconds later, you take it out, piping hot, everything good to go. He said it doesn't work that way. It takes time. And then he brought a Gemara. The Gemara says, Pasuk in Tehillim, Im la'anavim, Im la'leitzim hu yalutz, v'la'anavim yitain chen. If a person wants to be with the scoffers, he can scoff. And if a person wants to be with the anavim, those who have humility, yitain chen, he'll be given charm. He'll be given grace. The Gemara says, Haba l'taher, misayinoto. A person wants to become tahor, purified, misayinoto. He gets helped in that direction. Haba l'tame, you want to become tameh, potchin lo. The opportunity is opened up for you, but you don't get pushed in that direction. Tana dever Rabbi Yisroel. They learn in the Yeshiva Rabbi Yisroel. Marshal davar doma. To what can this be compared? A person walks into a store, and they're selling different things there. Person wants some neft, wants some kerosene. The person tells him, the shopkeeper says, right, go over there, right, and help yourself. A person wants a persimmon with a wonderful fragrance. He says to him, Hamtenli, wait for me. V'nipasem ani v'ata. I'll scoop it out with you, and we'll both get that wonderful fragrance. So that's the mashal. You want to become tameh, you want the kerosene, potchin lo. It's over there. Help yourself. The opportunity is opened. You don't get pushed. Habal taher. You want to become tahor, purified. You want the spice. Beautiful. There, he'll dish it out with you. Will help you to get that. So he asked, Ma mosif hamashal. What is this parable adding over here? I already know. You want to become tahor, you want to become tameh, potkin lo, opportunities opened up, help yourself. You want to become tahor, right? You get helped. Help yourself to the neft. I'll help dish out the parson. Rabbi Shmuel is telling us stories over here. The mashal has to be adding something. So he said, listen again, boys. The person wants the neft. What does he say? Go there, help yourself. The person wants the aparsimon. What does he say? Hamtain li. Wait for me. V'nitbasem ani v'ata. Wait for me, and then we'll both get the fragrance of the aparsimon. Habal taher Messiah Oto. You want to become tahor, pure, you will get helped, but it doesn't happen instantaneously. It's not on our time schedule. It's on Hashem's schedule. And here, Leah gave up, and then it took next generation, but she ends up having 7 tribes, and Rachel has her 2 tribes. That's how Hashem is mishalmim alo mishalmim, as he said. Yaakov then gives the brachos. One other thing that's so important over here, and with this, after he blesses Menashe and Ephraim, then page 274, Yaakov calls his Perek Memtet. Yaakov calls his sons. Vayomer, he says, Hey Asvu, gather. Va'agida lachem et asher yikra etchem acharit hayamim. I'll tell you that which will happen in the end of days. And then he says, gather and listen, Bnei Yaakov, and listen to Yisroel, your father. Right? So what was the first gathering and what's the second gathering? Rashi famously brings the Medrash, Bikesh legalot et haketz. He wanted to let them know when is the ketz, when is the end point, when is Mashiach coming. V'nistalka mimenu shchina, and the shchina, the divine presence, left him. V'hitchil omer dvarim achirim, and therefore he started to tell them other things. But according to the Zohar, he did tell them about the ketz. He did tell them about the end of days, not when it would be, but how we would get there. And what is that? He kavtzu, gather together, right? When you will be mekubatzim, when you will be gathered together, when you will be united, when you will be one. As we read in the Haftorah last week, we take the stick that represents Judah and the stick that represents Yosef, and when it comes together, when it will be hikabtsu, that is how we will reach the acharit hayamim. That's how we will reach the end of days. So he wasn't able to tell them the time, but he was able to let them know how to get there. And then we hear about the brachot that he gives each of them. The pasuk says, "Ish kabir chato beirach otam." Each one of them he blessed according to their blessing, right? Because the bracha means to increase. So therefore, he saw the kochot that each of them had and blessed that's what should become realized. Every person has their brachot, and then Vayamat Yosef. Interesting, page 288. The Bereshit ends with the death of Yosef. Even though this is the book of Bereshit, which was the physical and the spiritual creation of the patriarchs, it ends with the death of Yosef. Why? Because Yosef was a quasi-av, a quasi-patriarch, because he too fathered 2 shvatim, 2 tribes. And this is the end of the book of Bereshit with us as individuals, and Shemot is where we transform into an Am, into a nation, into the Am Yisrael Chai, and as he said over here, Im Yisrael Chai. When we are with Yisrael, when we identify and are part of that nation, that is what gives us our chai, our chiyus, our life and our mission. The same way that Yaakov, Vayechee Yaakov, we began. Yaakov was alive when he was fulfilling his mission. Am Yisrael, Im Yisrael, chai. Right? Im, ayin mem, not aleph mem. In ayin mem, when we are with Yisrael, that is when we are also fulfilling our purpose, and we have to have a yikabetz, we have to have a gathering together. And through that, we can all say, as we finish the Sefer, Chazak, Chazak, V'nit Chazek. Let us be strong, and let us as individuals and as an Am let us all be strengthened during these difficult times that we are now living through and experiencing on personal levels and on a national level. Today's learning was the Eloi Nishmat Ora Bat Yaakov. Yes.
Is there a place where Hashem actually speaks to Yosef?
Mhm.
Where it says,
Vayomer Hashem El Yosef. No. And actually,
that's different than
yeah,
everybody up in
yeah, and that really, I think it's very important. Actually, the point that you're making, Judy, because Yosef became the Bechor, so to speak, in certain ways. He got the double Parsha, the double children, tribes. A Bechor is meant to be the one, or David Foreman speaks about this. When Hashem says, B'ni Bechori Yisroel, Israel, you are my child, my Bechor. A Bechor is a firstborn. We were not the firstborn, we were in Egypt, right? I mean, right? There are other nations. So why are we called the Bechor? So the purpose of a Bechor, or the role, I should say, of a Bechor, is to take the essence of the parents and show how does that look in the next generation. That's what a Bechor is meant to do. To take who the parents were, the parents' generation, and show, okay, those values, those teachings in this new world, every generation is a new world, how does it look over there? And that was the role of Yisroel, right? Hashem is the parent. We're supposed to show how do we take God and his values and how does that work in a physical, material world? So that's the role of a Bechor, and that's why B'ni Bechori Yisrael. Rabbi David Foreman says, we take that and we're supposed to bring the godliness into the world. Now, Yosef, it's going into a new world. It's not going to be as much, right? Of course, there will still be prophecy with Moshe, etc., but it's not going to be as it was with the Avot. So in a way, I think it's very, very instructive that Yosef, we don't find Vayomer Hashem al Yosef Lamor, Vayomer Hashem al Yosef, right? Because this is how we're going to be moving our way forward when we will no longer be having those open revelations. We still have them, we'll still have them, right? We have Har Sinai in Shmos, but we're transitioning to the point of the world as we know it, where we can see the hashgacha pratis, the divine providence around us, but it's not by daber Hashem el Cheryl or el Esther, right? That doesn't happen. To the best of my knowledge, I'm not taking away from any of you, but I know it doesn't. I know it's there's no by daber Hashem el Ciner. Yeah, that I could vouch for. Okay, my friends, chazak v'nitchazek. Next week we begin, Bezrat Hashem, the Sefer of Shema.